Hi, my name is Tori. This is the first time I've ever done a YouTube video like this. I'm bathed in this lovely orange light with this camera that isn't very high definition. This phone is the only camera I have access to, but I don't have access to a good place for it to look at me, so me lying on my pillow is going to have to do. So today, I'd like to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is mental illness, specifically OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder. To be clear, I'm not a psychology expert of any capacity. The most certification I have is a psychology minor, and that doesn't count for anything. So any of the information you hear in this video is coming from my own personal experience, testimonials I've read off the internet, and tricks I've learned in therapy. So when you think of OCD, you think of cleaning your hands too much, or having to fix that book that is in the wrong place and is too far out on the bookshelf. And those are all valid manifestations of OCD. There are multiple types of OCD, but for this video we're going to be focusing on pure O, or purely obsessional OCD. The OCD most people know about is characterized by having an obsession over something that is alleviated through a compulsion. Puro OCD, on the other hand, is purely obsessional OCD. People who have this form of OCD do not have the compulsion aspect to alleviate the obsession in their head. In my own personal experience, and from what I've read from many testimonials on the internet, the thoughts that come with pure obsessional OCD are graphic, violent, and really upsetting to the person having to deal with them. An example of pure OCD that I can think of is, for example, let's say you imagine punching somebody you love in the face, and you don't really have a reason for why you thought it just popped into your head. And because of that, you start to question yourself, and you start to get angry at yourself for having the thought in the first place. And unlike everybody else who can just have the thought and move on, you hold on to the thought, mostly because you have no other way of handling it, because it keeps pelting you and demanding your attention, and you try to ignore it, or you try to stifle it, or you try to pretend it's not there, but it gets worse and worse and worse. And the worst part is that you can't tap your fingers or turn the light off and on 6 times to make it go away. It has no compulsion. Therefore, it is stuck in your head with nowhere to go. I first discovered that I had Puro when I was 11 years old, though at the time I didn't know about OCD or Puro or what intrusive thoughts were. I just remember having really graphic, upsetting thoughts that made me feel horrible about myself. I had an insane amount of guilt, and I just blamed myself for everything. I just couldn't believe I was having these thoughts. And I was told my imagination was just being overactive, but even then I knew that that wasn't an excuse for what was happening in my mind. But eventually I ended up in therapy, and I ended up getting on some medication for it, and now I am doing much better. There are 2 things I want to say to people who are dealing with pure OCD. One, the fact that you are nervous and obsessing over these thoughts because you don't want them to come true does not show that you're a horrible person, but in fact the opposite. You being scared of them coming true is just a reflection of how good and decent a person you are. And the second thing you should know is that with these thoughts, stifling them or ignoring them or trying to smother them and pretend they're not there, that doesn't work. However, if you acknowledge that the thought is there, and that doesn't mean you're agreeing with the thought, that doesn't mean that you are saying the thought is true, but it just means that you're acknowledging the existence of the thought. When you acknowledge that the thought is in your head, then you take your power back, and the thought flows away like water. On a personal level, I have found that this experience, combined with many of the things I've gone through in my life, have led to a deeper wisdom and a greater strength for myself. You will be surprised by just how strong you really are. I know I have been. You have weathered the stigmatization that comes with mental illness, especially OCD, but I believe that one of the ways that we can eradicate ignorance is by taking the time to educate people on mental illness and OCD. People aren't born with an innate sense and knowledge of mental illness or OCD or anything really, and yes, that is Dean Winchester and Sam Winchester behind me. I'll probably make a video about them at some point. In any case, there is some additional resources and information in the thing below this video, but the best thing you can do for yourself if you haven't already is to get help. You can do this. I am signing off, and I'll see you in the next video.